Now, a fan favorite among the hard count program. He is the man for all things, not just Deion Sanders recruiting, but just recruiting in general. National On3 recruiting analyst. Welcome to the program once again, Josh Newberg. Josh, how we doing, my guy? How's everything sitting on your end?
Oh, really busy. Great to be on the hard count, but this run up to signing day should be something special.
I was gonna say, man, you're keeping the phone juiced up right now, I'd imagine. Like always having the ringer on, never do not disturb. Like, are you getting much sleep these days, or what's that looking like?
Taking phone calls sitting next to my outlet as my cell phone's plugged in and I'm just trying to catch a charge, but still use the phone. Those are the days that we're dealing with right now.
Got to do what you got to do. Desperate times for desperate measures, full on sprint mode for Josh Newberg and the entire On3 recruiting team. Josh, let's start with this. Hashtag Dante to LA is trending on Twitter the other day. And Dante Moore, a guy who was obviously committed to Oregon for a long period of time here, the offensive coordinator for Oregon, Kenny Dillingham, takes the head coaching job at Arizona State. Walk me through how much smoke you believe there is behind this UCLA visit for Dante Moore.
Well, he was there on an official visit to go visit with Chip Kelly. Like, this is 2010. I don't know. UCLA just comes out of nowhere. Five-star quarterback out of the Detroit area, has been committed to Oregon since July. Now, we're a week from signing day. And like you mentioned, Kenny Dillingham did leave, the offensive coordinator that was the primary recruiter on Dante Moore. He is at Arizona State, but Arizona State is not in contention. It looks like UCLA has made a significant offer. This is a NIL battle that we're dealing with. This is a new day and age of college football. I spoke with recruiting director for On3, Chad Simmons, and Chad is watching to see if Dante Moore takes another visit this weekend. There's some possibility, there's some talk of maybe potentially Ohio State, but I'll tell you what, Oregon is the one that's working really hard to get him back on campus, because that will be mightily important. If he visits Oregon this weekend, I really like the Ducks' chances of keeping him signed. If he goes anywhere other than Eugene, Oregon, man, is Dan Lanning going to be sweating it out come signing day.
And if I'm an Oregon Duck fan, Dante Moore's from the state of Michigan.
Right.
Like, it's not like he's just taking a drive up the highway to get to UCLA. Like, he's jumping on a flight, packing a lot of clothes, and making this effort to get to Westwood for that kind of visit. So that's the thing that would make me nervous. But like you said, the day and age of the NIL packages being a very real factor in the recruiting cycle for high schoolers, but also the transfer portal. So that's the world we're living in right now, Josh. But going back to that whole topic of, who could flip, are there some other names that you're watching as signing day is very quickly approaching?
Yeah, there's a few, including the #1 defensive lineman in America who is committed to Texas A&M. A&M struggled mightily this season on the football field, but Jimbo does what Jimbo does in the offseason, which is recruit. Now, 5-star plus lineman David Hicks is committed to the Aggies and has been for some time, but he's looking around. He was in Oregon last weekend. He's been to Oklahoma. The two O's are where I'm looking at he could flip. It's going to be a big battle down the stretch. We'll see if Jimbo can hang on. Another one that I'm watching, Notre Dame 5-star commitment Peyton Bowen, also out of the state of Texas. He's a safety. He's also a great return man. Instant impact player wherever he goes on the college level. He is Notre Dame's only 5-star commitment, and the Sharks are circling. Texas is involved. Oklahoma's involved. Texas A&M is involved. So we'll see if Notre Dame can hang on. And if they don't, I think it's critical that they do hang on to Peyton Bowen, because they are currently sitting at #3 overall in the On3 consensus team rankings. And I think a loss of Peyton Bowen could bounce them out of the top 5.
And Josh, something that you and I talked about on the Inside Scoop, Peyton Bowen, a guy who has been pretty open about his recruiting and saying, like, yeah, I got to make a final decision. Meaning, even though he's committed, a final decision has yet to be made. So I love those picks in terms of flip watch. I think it's super fascinating, and something you and I talked about in the office today, in-home visits. The official visits get all the buzz because you got the photo shoots, and they make headlines, and they read a little bit easier than an in-home visit. Walk the people through at home just how impactful this week is in terms of coaching staffs going to these recruits' homes and having a conversation with them about why they should commit to X, Y, and Z school.
It's insanity right now, because coming up this weekend will be the final official visit weekend in college football before the dead period begins, and then you got signing day next Wednesday. So all these coaches are out on the road right now. They're all going to return to campus on Friday. So you're jam-packing in-home visits from Sunday night until Thursday night. And there's a little strategy involved, of course. The early week visits, coaches are going to go set out to try to see their commitments, guys that they can spend a good amount of time with, just reassure them of their decision, and then expect them to sign on signing day. Now, you save those late week visits for those critical remaining uncommitted targets. And everybody is doing the dance to get in last, because you better believe you want that last face-to-face contact with some of these top recruits as they head into the dead period. So this week is chock full of coaches doing in-home visits with big-time recruits.
Recency bias. It's kind of funny. It's like an audition, right? Of like, hey, who do you remember most recently having a good impression? Who felt like they were family when they were in the home? And that's another piece of this, Josh. There's a lot of talk about the coaches being on the road, and it's a wear and tear for the kids. For these families, a lot of these meals that are being prepared for the in-home visits, that takes a wear and tear on the families too. I remember for my in-home visits, it was a lot of, hey, we're getting Chick-fil-A. What do you want? Like that was how I went about it.
It could take some wear and tear on these coaches too. Imagine if some of these meals probably are not that good.
It's very difficult to go 5 for 5 on those in-home visit meals. So yeah, that's a good point. It takes a wear and tear on everybody in that, but all about making sure you land the right signature on signing day. Speaking of signing day, Keon Keeley made his decision. He's going to roll with the Tide, going to be in Tuscaloosa for his foreseeable future in terms of playing college football. What's the moving and shaking that you could see potentially happen within the top 5?
So you got Georgia at number 2, Notre Dame at 3, Ohio State 4, and Texas at 5. I think there's a good chance that when all the dust settles on National Signing Day, we don't even see Notre Dame in the top 3, especially or in the top 5, especially if they lose Peyton Bowen. If they lose Peyton Bowen, get them out of the top 5. I think LSU, I think maybe even a Miami, Oklahoma, or Florida could sneak in that bottom tier of the top 5. But number 1, I agree with you. I think it's pretty much locked up at this point, barring something dramatic happening. Now, there is plenty of firepower left on the board, especially for Georgia and Ohio State. 5-star edge rusher Damon Wilson out of Venice, Florida, is going to make his decision on signing day. That's a huge swing. There's a couple others out there, and I think that this could provide some movement on National Signing Day.
And Josh, this is a question that we didn't really talk about in the office, but I'm sitting here hearing you say all this about Notre Dame and how they're potentially going to fall. And it's crazy because during the summer, like Notre Dame was the hot school, right? Like Marcus Freeman was making them cool again. They got these cool new visit pictures with kids taking, recruit visits or recruit photos rather of them on the Gold Throne. Why have they cooled off so much in your opinion? Is it the on-field product? Is it something within the staff? Why is Notre Dame starting to fade here down the stretch in your mind?
The games got played mainly. Once the games got played, and especially that loss to Marshall. Now, I know Notre Dame got it back together at the end, and I think that's why they are still a top 5 team. I think that if they would have continued that spiral that it looked like they were in the first quarter of the season, this class could have fallen apart. So they've done a good job, but because of the slow start, I feel like Notre Dame is heading into this final week a little bit on the defensive rather than the offensive, like you see teams like Alabama, Georgia, Texas. So I think that Notre Dame did salvage what they had. They were the hot team, no doubt about it, throughout the offseason, but the games got played, and they're a little bit on the defensive as we head into signing day.
No, it makes complete sense because you have to hold on to those recruits throughout the duration of a season. And Marcus Freeman, in his first year as being a head coach at a program like Notre Dame, it's a lot of pressure to hold on to the kind of class that he has, but still would be a great year for Notre Dame on the recruiting trail. And I think Marcus Freeman's going to get that thing headed to the right spot that they want to be at in terms of being at the top tier on the college football landscape. But you know who's still out there, Josh?
Who?
Coach Prime.
Oh, he's coming.
He's still out there. He's coming, and he's a guy who we already saw flip the #1 player in the country a season ago on signing day, and Travis Hunter, being a Florida State guy, not so fast, my friend, switches the hat. He's Jackson State and puts pen to paper. I'll just throw it like this. Over under 1.5 guys that Deion Sanders flips on signing day, Josh.
Give me the over. I'm always taking the over, but when it comes to Deion Sanders and making some flips, 1.5, give me the over on that one. I think that, like we said, there's proof of concept. Last year, there was whispers. People were saying, oh, could Deion do this? Could Deion do that? Well, guess what Deion did? He flipped 5-star Travis Hunter from Florida State. He goes out and lands Kevin Coleman when he had offers from FSU, Miami, amongst others. He is what everybody feared. When those whispers were happening last year, well, they've gotten a little bit louder this year because Deion Sanders is now a Power 5 coach with a real platform at the highest level, and I think he's going to do some damage on signing day. There's going to be schools out there that think right now, that are sitting in their war rooms right now, penciling in guys that they know are going to be in their class. And there's going to be some schools that are sorely disappointed when Deion Sanders comes to town and steals their 5 stars. We'll see if it happens. I'm not guaranteeing it, but I'm taking your over, JD.
Some Louis luggage headed from Jackson State with him, but some Louis luggage he's going to acquire on the recruiting trail. Coach Prime on the hunt. Nobody is safe. I said it. He's like the transfer portal's version of Thanos. He is inevitable. So a lot of folks hanging on to who they assume they will get a signature from on signing day, but Coach Prime, he's coming. Josh, I want to send you out of here with this. We're grateful for your time. The NIL game is sort of new to college football. I mean, we just said a year ago, hey, it's cool. NIL is a thing now. Go ahead and pay players for the name, image, and likeness. It's a very real thing on the recruiting trail. What percent of these commitments are, I want to make sure I ask the right way, how much is NIL involved in these kids' recruitment?
If not NIL directly in their pockets, the idea or the opportunity for earning money once you get on campus is extremely important. And I think as you look at tiers, right, you got top 50, you got top 100, you got top 200, you got top 300, and then you kind of have the rest. I think as you go higher in the elite group of recruits, I think NIL comes into play more and more. There's also certain positions where it's going to come into play more and more, like the quarterback position. So we're seeing it all happen real time. What it all turns out to be, I don't know. I think that there's going to be some sort of settling down period when it comes to NIL. But right now, heading into this 2023 signing day, I think that is the biggest story that we're going to be following.
It's wild. It's wild to juxtapose today's college football and the signing day that we're about to have with the 5 years ago signing day, and now the structure with NIL packages being in play, and it's absolutely wild. But Josh, appreciate you so much coming on, dropping some knowledge. Folks, Josh and I are going to be doing some more content here, some more live content in the very near future, so make sure you're subscribed to the On3 YouTube channel. Make sure you got the bell notifications pushed because we got a lot to get into as signing day is very, very quickly approaching. Josh, appreciate you, my man. We'll have you on again real soon, and keep the phone charged.
All right, appreciate you guys. Roll party.
The man, the myth, the legend, Josh Newberg. If you have not already followed him on Twitter, would encourage you to do so. Also, he has his own program on the On3 YouTube channel, The Inside Scoop, which I have been fortunate enough to be able to ride shotgun for the last couple of episodes. I'm telling you, transfer portal season, turning up the heat. Recruiting season, down to the final sprint. Make sure you're locked in with us. As Josh says, make sure you're locked in and clocked in. All right, very, very important here on the On3 YouTube channel. Fired up to have you along for the ride. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.